Today we're going over the 10.6 refines in Fire Emblem Heroes. This month we got new skills for Limstella, Miriel, Neimi, Ascended Laegjarn, and Harmonic Bridal Catria / Thea. Limstella is a bulky green infantry mage. Their Morph Fimbulvetr is mostly the same minus activation conditions. This weapon grants +3 flat attack and inflicts -8 attack and res on the foe. Limstella gains a free follow-up to go along with their follow-up denial now. Limstella gains bonus attack equal to the highest total attack plus res field buffs on allies within 3 spaces. Last, if Limstella made an attack, after combat, inflict 15 damage onto the nearest ally. Before we discuss Limstella's new bolting style, let's cover the rest of their refined effects. At the start of either phase, grant Essence Drain, Low, and 50% DR piercing statuses to Limstella and a certain target ally. This will be Limstella's support partner, otherwise it will be the ally with the highest res stat entering battle. For personal effects, Limstella inflicts another -6 attack and res, deals 20 true damage, and has 7 flat damage reduction. As for bolting style, this is simply an Emblem Lyn Astral Storm style range attack. Limstella can attack foes within 5 spaces and within 3 rows or columns. They cannot move or trigger AoE specials. They do not get any other combative effects, but you can use bolting style once per turn. Alright, so to summarize, Limstella gains Essence Drain, but like Sonya, they can only share it with one other ally. You may want to pair up with the Morphs because Limstella gets a partial Blade Tome effect based on their attack and res field buffs. Limstella has no innate field buffing, but Sonya does grant +6 attack and res. For other effects, Limstella can neutralize field buffs and gets 50% DR piercing. They have Omni Breaker, 20 true damage, 7 flat DR, and -14 attack and res debuffs. Unfortunately, something you need to plan around is Limstella's 15 damage inflicted on an ally. If Limstella is fighting a lot, they're gonna chunk out their teammates. Maybe you can take advantage of this with like Grimel's Bolt Axe, but I believe the intended behavior is for Limstella to defeat their target, which would trigger Essence Drain's 10 HP healing. This is a neat tactic, but it definitely would require good positioning. Limstella has a couple interesting ways to utilize bolting, but it will require some help. Like other long-range styles, you can try and get an extra action to reposition before you use bolting. For Limstella, they can use Emblem Makai's Ring for this, and the healing would actually be useful since Morph Fimbulvetr is going to hurt an ally. Now, if Limstella attacks first, they can trigger Essence Drain and pass on the buffs to their support partner, or whoever is the highest res ally. Conversely, Limstella's partner can trigger Essence Drain first, then Limstella can use bolting while all buffed up. Now, to go with this playstyle, you can use Favor to buff up an ally. Limstella could reposition or smite their Essence Drain partner in while buffing them up. Favor can also help Limstella charge their special. This can be accelerated by Comet's own cooldown or something like Pulse of Ploy. Since Limstella is so slow and may get doubled often, you could try Logic to get 40% DR on all hits taken. That will only apply for initiations though. Comet will be better for mixed phasing. For other skills, Limstella can use Crystalline Water or the spicy Rise Above for +12 flat stats if you want to use other ploy skills. This also applies for Unrest or Havoc Beast skills. Another way to support allies is with dual support, Silence Ward, or even Breath of Life if you need to heal them. If you did want to use Rise Above, you can pair that with Instruct to try and buff up attack, defense, and res for the team. For combative skills, Limstella is decently bulky, so the new Close Bond A skill, C Bonus Doubler, or Close Transcend Sacred Seal could be fun. If you want debuff neutralization with true damage, flat DR, and -1 cooldown, you can use Demonic Force along with high cooldown specials. Those also work well with Arya's A skills to grant extra true damage. For other specials, Limstella can use Ice Wall, Frost Moon, Magic Light, or Flare. For Tune X skills, Times Pulse Echo is always good, but Tempo, Nazi Disrupt, Guard, or Attack Ult aren't bad either. All in all, Limstella could set up some interesting bolting plus Essence Drain scenarios, but they would be stronger if their partner triggered Essence Drain first. Only giving Essence Drain to one ally is a little limiting, although you could also use Sonya or Nurgle to get more Essence Drain users. It doesn't matter how you get the status, if one person can trigger its effects, then everyone will benefit from it. Next, Miriel is a blue infantry mage demote with some alright speed. Miriel has received a new weapon called Clever Notations. At start of turn, if special cooldown is at max value, grant -2 cooldown. If Miriel's special is at max cooldown -1, she gets -1 cooldown instead. For combat, Miriel gets +5 stats, deals 20 true damage, and has no guard. For the refined part, at start of turn and after acting, Miriel inflicts Exposure, Speed Shackle, and Res Shackle on the closest foe and anyone nearby. For other personal effects, Miriel will get another +5 stats, 7 flat DR, and Funnel Follow-up. Clever Notations is a pretty simple weapon. Miriel offers speed and res shackle in combat debuffing, plus exposures 10 true damage. She gets no follow-up for her decent speed. Clever Notations doesn't have slaying, but it does have the super times pulse effect and no guard. If Miriel only fights once per turn, she can at least start with -2 cooldown every fight. Pretty straightforward offensive weapon. For builds, Miriel is in a decent spot to try for an instant high cooldown special. Clever Notations would bring the 5 cooldown Logic or Comet to 3 cooldown. Comet grants its own -1 cooldown every turn, and Logic has -1 instant cooldown if the thaw is a penalty. Miriel's Refine applies 3 penalties for that. So far we have -3 cooldown. To get the last -2 cooldown, you can use Demonic Force plus Silence Ward, or just Creation Pulse. Both give -2 cooldown instantly to trigger your Logic or Comet specials. Since Miriel has no guard, you could try to save special for a follow-up attack. The main concern would be tanking the foe's counter. Miriel is not exactly a tanky mage. If you want to give it a shot, you could try Demonic Force with, say, Rise Above. It does give +10 HP, +12 defense and res, and 7 flat DR. I mean, not a guaranteed safe plan, but with Logic or Comet's 40% damage reduction, it's a lot better than most squishy units. If you want an even more flat DR, your C-skill could be something like Dual Support or the new No Pulse Follow. If you'd rather stick to the one-shot instant special playstyle, Arya plus Demonic Force is tough to beat. Since Miriel doesn't have Slaying, she should get the full 25 true damage from both skills. 50 true damage plus her weapons 20 true damage plus exposures 10 true damage, that's not too shabby. For less, but still nice amounts of true damage, finish skills are another option. If you run Creation Pulse, the B slot can be used for skills like Low Finish, Pair Up, or Conjuring Breath. For another playstyle, Miriel can lean into more support with Favor to complement her Shackle debuffing. Miriel could also charge up an AoE special this way, or just Logic, Comet, or something like Astra. Scowl would mess up Miriel's instant specials, so pre-charging with Favor passively isn't a bad idea. As for attuned X skills, Miriel can add Times Pulse Echo, Low Echo, Fleeting Echo, maybe even Guard Echo. In general, Miriel's Refine is pretty simple, but there are some fun cooldown heavy builds for mages. Super Times Pulse won't recharge after every fight, but at least for every new player phase, starting with -2 cooldown at the minimum is still good. Neimi is our first old 5-star unit today. She's a red infantry archer with decent offensive stats and more res heavy defensive spread. Neimi's Rapid-Crier Bow got most of its updates in the base weapon. At start of either phase, grant +6 attack and speed, empathy, no follow-up, and pulse follow statuses to Neimi and the ally with the highest attack plus speed total for 1 turn. For personal effects, Neimi will get +3 flat speed and +5 stats in combat. She has 7 flat damage reduction and no guard effects. Similar to Limstella, Neimi gets bonus attack and speed equal to the highest total attack and speed field boss on herself or an ally within 3 spaces. As for the refined portion, we got some standard modern effects. Neimi gets +10 stats in combat, deals 20 true damage, and has 50% DR piercing. Rapid-Crier Bow keeps its attack and speed gap buffing mechanic. It now works on either phase and has added empathy for more in-combat stats, no follow-up for speedy units, and pulse follow for -2 cooldown on the first follow-up attack. Neimi is only going to buff one ally, but she now buffs herself, which is a very good update. On top of this, Neimi's Blade Tome-like effect now buffs speed, and it now includes her own attack plus speed field buffing total. Unless you have Eikthenir or something, Neimi should get another +12 attack and speed. If her field buff gets neutralized, she can borrow from an ally within 3 spaces. Everything else here is pretty standard. Neimi will get a base +15 to all stats, so with the updates, she is getting a good amount of attack and speed she wasn't getting before. Empathy will add even more stats to that, plus you got true damage and flat DR effects. As for cooldown, no slaying here, but Neimi has no guard and pulse follow. She probably won't be triggering specials immediately like Miriel. You most likely will need to get a follow-up attack. For builds, you can add to Neimi's support power with something like Favor, but there's currently not a defense res Favor just yet. Favor also overlaps on Empathy, but Neimi would get 75% DR piercing total, and then the -1 cooldown support is just so valuable. For an alternative defense res buffing method, you could use the defense res Link Sacred Seal, cheap +6 to all stats. Neimi could set up a bonus doubler type build, even if her weapon only buffs attack and speed. As usual, if you can pair Neimi with a field buff buffer like Eikthenir, she can get even more stats. As for combat, Neimi really wants to get to her follow-up, but with 21 base defense, that would be a concern versus the 7 million distant counter users and/or dragons, daggers, archers, etc. Ideally, she should use a 40% DR special like Waning Shot, Arch Rival, or Comet. To stack flat DR for one of those, then there's the new fun generalist build Neimi can run. Something like Rise Above 4, Pair Up 4, and Dual Support or Instruct 4 would provide flat DR in all 3 slots. You also get Rise Above's ridiculous total stat bump along with Pair Up's debuff neutralization. These skills also tack on more true damage as well. Now, I didn't really think about it, but Rise Above with one of the newer Squad A seals would grant a total of plus 13 extra HP. That's kinda insane just from 2 skills. Continuing, Neimi has a bunch of other skill options. With Hex Edge, she can also get to 75% DR piercing, and Flash Sparrow is an older way to get breath type cooldown. You could use Diva Res Pledge as well, but the modern way will be with Execution Breath. These could help charge Arch Rival even if you don't fight a green foe. For their support skills, Neimi isn't the highest res unit ever, but if you want to try stack flat res with Crystalline Water or Rise Above, then she could try to trigger things like Ploy, Unrest, or Havoc, just more support to pair with her weapon. For attuned X skills, Time's Pulse would be nice, or Low Echo to further gain the stat advantage. If you're stacking res to fight squishy mages or healers with sweep effects, you could also take Nelsie Disrupt. Overall, Neimi's Refine is a surprising amount of stats, gained mainly because Neimi now buffs herself. If you only need to buff one ally, she can buff them from anywhere on the map, assuming they're your highest attack plus speed unit. We still have a couple months out from Combs Refine, but I'm curious if they're going to try to make him synergize with Neimi in some way. That's something I'll personally be keeping an eye on. Our next refine is for Ascended Laegjarn. She's a colorless bow cavalier with decent offensive stats and a higher defense and res focus. Laegjarn's Flame of Muspell bow has sling and grants plus 6 attack and speed with plus 5 defense and res in combat. Like Limstella and Neimi, this weapon also grants bonus stats based on field buffs, but Laegjarn adds it to all 4 stats. She takes 50% of the highest total on herself, the foe, or allies within 3 rows or columns. Laegjarn would then deal 22 damage per hit and has fun follow-up effects. If you use Laegjarn before, you should be aware that her field buff mechanic has changed. It used to total up all the field buffs on Laegjarn and all the field buffs on the enemy. Now, Laegjarn takes the highest total from one of 3 candidates: herself, the enemy, or an ally. Due to this change, it is possible for Laegjarn to get less stats in some situations now because you don't combine totals. However, the trade-off is that Laegjarn is no longer capped to plus 12 bonus stats. This was achieved with 24 total field buffs. That will still be the norm, but if you can get higher field buffing values from effects like Eikthenir, Muspell's Refine, or the new chosen Laegjarn, then she can get more stats. For example, plus 9 field buffs on all 4 stats totals to 36, 50% of that is plus 18 to all stats. With this in mind, the Refine upgrade part states, at the start of either phase, grant plus 6 attack and speed, treachery, breath type cooldown, and Conto 1 to allies within 2 spaces. Laegjarn gets plus 5 stats in combat and gets 7 flat damage reduction. Last, she gets the 100% potent follow-up condition. If decreasing the speed roll to double by 10 would trigger a follow-up, then trigger 100% potent follow. Laegjarn's base kit has Rouse attack and speed and Far Trace. She now gets attack and speed buffing with Conto 1 as part of her Refine, and she gives it to her team. Breath type cooldown is always great, and Treachery will synergize with the field buff stacking. Unfortunately, if the foe can neutralize field buffs, Treachery will not be active. Now, in those scenarios, Laegjarn can at least borrow the plus 6 attack and speed buffs she gave to her teammates. You still want to find defense and res field buffs though. In general, Laegjarn's got a lot of nice effects, however, to truly make the most of her field buff gimmick, you do want an ally who can grant the higher plus 9 or plus 10 field buff setups. It's no coincidence Muspell's Refine and Chosen Laegjarn have Eikthenir's plus 3 field buff buffing effect. The new Laegjarn also has No Panic and a support fringe bonus type effect. I mean, it's kinda obvious what they're kinda pushing toward. For builds, I will continue to lament over the lack of skills for range cavaliers. Laegjarn would love to use the modern Hone Cavalry C skills that grant field buffs to her teammates. Well, there's no defense and res option that Laegjarn can use. Since she grants a ton of statuses, you could try attack and speed Liberate, that would add more true damage support to Treachery. For an actual field buffing option, Odd Defense Wave 4 isn't the worst option. You can give Laegjarn tempo, but she will need to win a defense check. This skill is incredibly rare, but from this month's ephemera, you can get Summer Hareed, who does have it. For other support skills, Laegjarn can run defense and res Link like Neimi, because there is no defense and res favor. Rally defense and res would help an ally, but that doesn't buff Laegjarn. Now, if you want to assist with in-combat debuffing, Shackle could work. The Tech B skills can apply exposure, which also stacks the true damage with Treachery. For Laegjarn's combat, Slang and Breath type cooldown along with a 100% potent hit should trigger a 4 or 5 cooldown special at some point. Laegjarn can use Waning Shot, or Drivel's fine too, but Laegjarn won't get the cooldown perks because she's colorless. For skills, Laegjarn would have loved the Generalist Rise Above to go with her stat stacking gimmick, but she's stuck picking between attack and speed or attack and defense boosting skills. There are no flat DR options, and Remote Sparrow only gives 30% regular DR. Since Laegjarn does grant 3 statuses, you could try to run Prime 4, you get a 4th status, and you can have close counter capabilities. In the B slot, there also aren't really a lot of modern options. Execution Breath is good, but Laegjarn already has its main effect, so I'm not sure you want to commit to that. Same for Arc 4th Breath. As for low skills, it would fit Laegjarn's stat-focused playstyle, but you can get the full low effect from Low Echo. Desperation 4 would be fun with no follow-up and the 100% potent hit. It's not a bad effect, but the B skill is just not granting extra firepower. For Attune to X skills, Low Echo is probably the best pick, but Guard or Fleeting Echo can work for some defensive perks. For Sacred Seals, Laegjarn's Refine will fully activate Prime 3 stat boost. She can also use this slot for low or dull skills. Otherwise, any attack speed boosters will be fine. In general, I think Ascended Laegjarn's Refine's alright, but it's pushing for her to partner with someone who has the +3 field buff buffing effect. Her build options are also unfortunately a little bit limiting when it comes to modern skills. It doesn't really help when the infantry and army units with higher base stats are getting skills like Rise Above. Our last Refine and Seasonal Refine will go to one of the most infamous units in FEH history. Harmonic Bridal Catria and Thea terrorized the game with their triangle attack status. We've gotten way more Brave attack supports, but generally they try to keep them single target. Catric can set her whole team up with Brave hits if you can stick together. As a unit, Catria is an Axe Flyer with good offensive stats. Wedding Bow Axe receives slight changes. Assertive of either phase grants the regular Warp status, Triangle attack status, and Truly Incited to Catria and allies within 2 spaces. She has Slaying and gains +11 attack and speed with +10 defense and res. Catria now gets 15 flat damage reduction. Basically, Catria got extra stats and flat DR. Truly Incited rewards moving to attack, but you need to be within 2 spaces of 2 allies with Triangle attack to get the Brave attacks. In the modern age, units can initiate from much farther away, making it tougher to trigger the status. The devs definitely don't want Triangle attack to run wild again, but they have addressed some of its issues, at least for Catria herself. From the Refine part, gain +5 stats in combat and deal 20 true damage. If the number of flying allies or allies with Triangle attack active within 3 rows or columns is 2 or greater, then Catria gets Brave attacks and -1 cooldown before every single hit. The Refine will not make it easier for Catria's allies to trigger Triangle attack. However, Catria can use Triangle attack to trigger Brave hits without triggering the status itself. She now checks if there are 2 Triangle attack allies within the much larger 3 row, 3 column range. If there are, then Catria gets the Brave hits, and IV's -1 instant cooldown before every hit. That's a very powerful effect. To further assist Catria, the Brave hits should now work on enemy phase, and she can check if there are 2 flyers in range. As a reminder, Catria and Thea's Harmony skill is pretty good. They grant Resonance Blades, Desperation, and a free follow-up. All of those things will benefit Brave attacks. Triangle attack still requires Catria's team to stay close, but Catria herself has way more freedom to initiate now. As a flyer, Catria can abuse the long-range pass warping skills, Air Superiority, and Heavenly Soar. Air Superiority's potent would be really fun, especially with Trample or Dive Bomb. Catria could unleash 3 or 5 hits in a row without her Harmonized skill. Do note, Catria did not get Kanto, so if you want to dive in deep, you probably want Blue Skies, Airspace, or Tumultuous Echo, or just some kind of Kanto status. If you run Blue Skies, you can get its flat DR effects, pair that with Heavenly Soar for a slightly more defensive setup. Catria can also use Riptide Guard for no follow-up, or Impetus Guard for momentum cooldown. Both of those add Scowl, which would be good if a foe survives the Brave hits and gets the counter back. For other skills, another way to get no follow-up is with no uplift, but Osby Wave 4 works too. For extra mobility, Catria can use Hold Guide, Brutal Tempest, Strat Assault, Air Orders 4, or Rain Snap. A whole lot of options on the table to get allies into better attacking positions. While the Refine focused on Catria's personal combat, still having Triangle attack for allies is really good. Soaring Echo is another good option for even better team warping. There's also Shadow Assist skills, although you're gonna need Kanto again to activate that. On the topic of specials, Shatter Slash is tempting because with 3 cooldown, due to Slaying, Catria can trigger it on a second Brave hit. If she quads, she will trigger it twice. Now, one effect I would try to find for support is No Guard. Speed Taker is the only way to get that for Catria in a self-sufficient build, but there are many other good skills in that slot. Catria can also use Execution Breath or Momentum skills for cooldown. With the extra help, she could maybe trigger Arch Rival in 2 hits potentially. Other specials available are Celestial Form, Haze Slice, or Gale Force Mist. Extra actions would be tempting. In conclusion, Harmonic Catria and Thea, I would say, did alright for themselves. It's not really a secret that a lot of very popular units sometimes don't get the best refines. That's not always true, especially these days, but it is a worry in the back of your head when a unit as infamous as this Catria reappears after so many years. That will be it for the 10.6 refines. I would say it's an okay batch. You may need assistance for things like Limstella to use bolting effectively or Laegjarn in her field boss, but overall there were some nice updates. It is very interesting that there are 3 units basically using the same mechanic of turning field boss into bonus stats. I wonder if that was intentional because of the new chosen Laegjarn. Speaking of, next up we'll cover the new banner releasing soon, or today. Thank you for watching, have fun with the new skills, and I will see you in the next video.